Hi, my name is Thomas Gibbs with US Franchise Visa, and in this video, we'll discuss the franchise opportunity Shelf Genie with Wes Barefoot, the Director of Franchise Development and Franchise Partner. Wes, thanks for being on the call today.
Hey, Thomas, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, give us the 30,000 foot view, the who, what, when, where of Shelf Genie.
Yeah, sure. So, Shelf Genie is a very unique franchise opportunity. We specialize in custom glide out shelving solutions for our clients. We primarily focus on the kitchen, pantry, and bathroom areas of the home. So it's a bit of a niche, focus for us, but one that there's, huge demand for, and one that we can really specialize in. From the consumer perspective, the biggest way Shelf Genie is able to differentiate ourselves is the high level of customization that we're able to provide for our clients. We completely customize every solution that we build and install for them. Shelf Genie owns the manufacturing facility that produces all of these products, or as we call them, solutions. So that really gives us the ability to come in, meet with a prospective client, understand what their needs are, and then design a solution that's custom to them. And that's where we really, kind of excel beyond what most of our competitors are able to do. So that's a little bit about the kind of the product side of what we do. In terms of a business opportunity or the franchise opportunity, the model's been designed to be very scalable. We started franchising back in late 2007, so we're here 10 plus years into this and have had a lot of success growing our brand through franchising. But early on, we knew that we wanted this to be a very scalable business opportunity. And so we set up a lot of systems and processes. And over the last 10 plus years, these systems and processes have really evolved. But the goal has always remained the same, which is to really put our franchise partners in a position where they can work on the business and not in the business. And I realize that sounds a little bit cliche, but, for us, we know that, a small business owner's franchise or not, there's always going to be challenges that arise that are going to kind of take the business owner's eye off of, the things they really should be focusing on, the type of activities that are going to move the needle and allow for growth and sustainability. So, our goal has really been to, put good systems and processes in place to alleviate as much of that as possible. And so, like any good franchisor should, we focus a lot on training new franchisees, helping them understand our business, helping them get their team in place, and kind of lay the groundwork to launch and ramp up as quickly as possible, which is, a big part of why many people invest in a franchise. But, in addition to that, we really, really focus on providing good ongoing support for our franchise partners. We want to make sure that, we're not only providing value to the newer franchise owners, and then once they've kind of learned the business, they're just kind of out there on their own. So there's really three key areas that we focus our ongoing support on: technology, marketing, and operational support. As candidates work with me through our discovery process, we go into a lot of detail, in terms of how we support our franchise partners in each of these areas. For the sake of time today, I'll keep it a little more high level, Thomas, but we've developed some great technology over the years that our franchise partners can really leverage to really just streamline the day-to-day management of their business, so that they're not spending huge amounts of their time just trying to stay on top of what's happening at any given time in their business. They're able to streamline that and free up time to focus on other things. From a marketing standpoint, we have some great marketing teams that support our franchise partners, from everything from digital marketing to some more traditional forms of advertising, which are still very relevant in our business, things like direct mail, and in some cases, even newspaper. We have a great creative team that develops all of the content. So we're really in a position to not only help our franchise partners determine what their marketing and advertising strategy should look like, but also to implement and execute it for them. And then for the franchise partner, it really just becomes a matter of monitoring the results that they're getting, looking at the ROI that they're getting from their marketing investment, and then over time, tweaking it a little bit and dialing it in to make sure that you're getting the best ROI possible. And then from an operational standpoint, we have what we call our business support center. which we take all of the incoming leads or inquiries on behalf of our franchise partners. So that could be, people that are calling in for more information or filling out a web form online to get more information. And the agents in the business support centers' primary responsibility is to convert these inquiries or these leads into actual appointments. I mentioned earlier the fact that we customize all of the solutions that we provide. So that means in order for us to give, a potential client an accurate quote or an idea of what we could do for them, we need one of our designers to go out and meet with them in their home. So we always do a free consultation with a client in their home. And so the goal of the Business Support Center is to book these appointments or these consultations for, a designer for the local franchise. So we essentially handle all of the incoming calls and inquiries for franchisees. Our Business Support Center does a fantastic job. They convert typically 75 to 80% of these inquiries into appointments on the first contact. In addition to taking the incoming calls, though, they do outbound calls and follow-up calls. So, for example, if someone does call in, but they're not ready to book an appointment, they'll go into a queue where the Business Support Center will continue to follow up with them. And then, home shows and trade shows and vendor fairs are a big part of most of our franchisees' local marketing strategy. And it's not uncommon that, you may exhibit at a home show, walk away with a list of leads of people that are interested in getting more information. We can actually upload those leads to the Business Support Center where they'll proactively start doing the outbound calls and the follow-ups to try and convert those leads to appointments for us as well. So I think the Business Support Center is a really good example of us being able to take a very critical yet time-consuming aspect of managing a business such as Shelf Genie off the plate of the franchise owner, again, freeing them up to really work on the business and not in the business. Again, the goal here is really kind of, scalability. So for our franchise owners, we want to put them in a position where they can spend the majority of their time focusing, developing their team, which really consists of just two components: designers, which are really kind of the sales people in your organization, and then installers, which are the ones doing the physical work, actually installing the solutions. So, developing your team and having the best team on the field possible is a great use of time for our franchise owners. And then, of course, business development. Our business is no different than most, where referrals are gold. So whatever a franchise owner can do to stir up some referral activity through networking and, B&I groups and joining their local chamber of commerce, any number of things, that's a great use of their time as well. So again, our focus through all of this ongoing support is to really take some of the monotonous aspects of managing the business off the owner's plate so they can focus on some of these other activities that we know will lead to growth and sustainability over time. So
this
that
really
may have been a lot more than you bargained for with that one question, but I'll hopefully I covered what you were hoping to.
Oh, absolutely. It really is a true executive type of franchise opportunity.
Yeah.
There's lots of different models out there, but having that call center support, I can't tell you how critical that is. As a previous franchisee, we got inbound calls. So one of our staff would have to take their time away from either delivering direct value to the customer or doing something else that needed to be done for the business. And quite frankly, your staff is not going to be as good, especially the first 6 months, 12 months, as someone that does this all day long, is calling and converting and following up. So
yeah, there's really a science to it, and it's a huge area of support. I mean, you mentioned at the top of the call that my wife and I are franchise owners with Shelf Genie as well, and that was a very important factor to us. We have a daughter that's now a little over 2 years old, and part of why we wanted to get into business for ourselves was so that we could have a little more flexible of a lifestyle and be able to spend more time with our daughter. And we knew if we were going to have to constantly be glued to our phones, trying to make sure we never missed a single call, that would prove difficult. So having that business support center there was big for us. And I'll share a quick story with you just to kind of, reiterate everything you're saying, Thomas. And this is not necessarily the norm, but it's a good example to, I think, illustrate just how good of a process the business support center has in place. We had a franchisee last year in 2018 that ended up running an appointment, or one of his designers did, but ran an appointment and made a sell with a lead that had been in their system for almost 4 years. Meaning this person inquired 4 years, had multiple contacts. I think in the system there were over 65 contacts or attempts to contact by our business support center before that client was finally ready to book an appointment, have a designer come out, and it ultimately turned into a sell. So it's really just a testament to the process that was in place, because if that were left up to me as a business owner, they would have maybe gotten 3 follow-up calls. And it wouldn't have gone beyond that, because I would have just been pulled in too many other directions, and it would have been a missed opportunity. So again, that's not the norm, but it's kind of an extreme example, but it's a testament to how dialed in they have the process.
So Wes, is it really as easy as it sounds? Is it like you wake up, you open up your calendar, and you got appointments booked on there for you? Is it really that easy?
It can be. I mean, it absolutely can be. The challenge for a lot of our franchise owners is, spending their marketing dollars in the best way possible, right? So spending your marketing dollars as efficiently as possible and getting, the most number of appointments and quality appointments from it. So, there's no silver bullet. What works for me in coastal North and South Carolina may not be the exact same strategy or approach that works for, some of our franchisees in different markets in different parts of the country. But as far as the automation of it, once you have appointments coming in, I mean, first thing my wife does every day is, get up and check the calendar and Wish Portal, which is our back office management system. And she can see, what appointments we have. There's a calendar feature built into that. So the business support center can see, what our designers' availability is through the calendar. So that's how they know when they can book appointments and not. So it's not like they have to, put a client on hold, then call us and say, hey, when can we book an appointment for them? It's all automated and streamlined, which makes for a much better client experience. And it also makes it easier for us as franchise owners as well. And then, with Wish Portal, our system, we have some franchise owners that don't even live in the markets that they own and manage. And that's partially doable because of technology like Wish Portal, where they can really stay plugged in and manage their business. So I would say the biggest key to being successful in this business, and also, can be one of the more challenging aspects of it, is making sure you have a great team of designers and installers in place. That's going to be the single biggest thing that results in someone being extremely successful in this business, or, having mediocre or less than mediocre results. It's how good of a team you've put in place. And so, you mentioned executive model earlier, Thomas, and that's exactly how I try to position Shelf Genie, because, quite frankly, we've had owners in the past that have taken more of an owner operator approach to this business, meaning they try to do it all themselves, right? They try to be the best designer on their team. We've had owners that, would go out and do their own installations from time to time. And it's just not the best use of the business owner's time. And it's also not scalable. As a franchise owner, you could be the best designer Shelf Genie's ever seen, but you still only have so many hours in the day. And you're going to hit a ceiling at some point in terms of how much production you can produce yourself. So we really are looking for franchise owners that, have the skill set, the ability to develop and manage a team, and that are interested in doing that. Because we know that that's, one of the biggest keys to success in this business. And so that doesn't necessarily make it easy. And we're in a position as the franchisor, now with over 10 years experience doing this, to provide a lot of coaching and best practices and guidance to new franchise owners in terms to, where to look for potential designers and installers, and what makes a good designer and installer. And of course, we help train them, but we can't go out and do it for them. We really need franchise owners that are capable and willing to recruit, train, and mentor a team of designers and installers. And that's why it's a bit counterintuitive, actually. Some of our most successful franchise owners, they came out of the corporate world where, they had responsibilities to develop and manage, in a lot of cases, much larger teams than what they're now managing at Shelf Genie, but the same principles apply. And most of those franchise owners never saw themselves being in a custom glide out shelving franchise. They didn't know anything about, custom glide out shelving. Most of our owners, couldn't go out and do an installation if they had to, but they've been able to develop strong teams that are capable of handling those aspects of the business, freeing them up to focus on the higher level aspects of the business, which are also usually the things that will really move the needle.
Yeah, for sure. And within that executive model, ideally, you have some type of managerial hiring, training experience. But if you don't have that experience, maybe there's a different opportunity out there that might be better for you. But yeah, I'm sure too that the opportunity can exist within Shelf Genie to maybe do an install or two, or maybe do a design or two here and there. Maybe as you're learning, is that part of the training and the onboarding process, or is that basically, no go, not going there type of thing?
No, it's a good question. So yeah, we train all new franchise owners on the design process. They go through the same training a designer would. They go through the same training and certification program that all of our installers do as well. So we do want owners to have that training, to have that knowledge and that experience. It'll put them in a better position to recruit, train, and mentor people for these roles. And with the designing aspect of the business, different owners have different approaches. Some owners, we encourage every owner to get out and run some design appointments when they're first getting started. You really kind of have to, just to really understand the process. It's going to be very difficult to recruit good designers if you're not familiar with that process yourself. And then some of our owners, like to continue to run design appointments even after they bring some other designers onto their team, which is fine. I think one of our highest volume franchise owners, he's got a team of 7+ designers, but he still tries to run, one appointment a week, just because it kind of helps him stay close to it. He can, stay in tune with the clients. It keeps him sharp. He likes doing it. He also is an engineer, by training. So he just kind of naturally likes problem solving. And so he enjoys doing it. We have other owners that, they kind of dove in, they learned it, but as soon as they had, other designers on their team, they kind of stepped out and don't really, spend as much time running appointments any longer. So, there's no exact right way to do it or not to do it. But what I can say pretty definitively is that anyone that's ever taken the approach of, well, I'm just going to run all the appointments myself, that's, the success that came from that approach was very short-lived. Again, for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier, you're going to hit a ceiling, quite possibly burn yourself out in the process. It's just not scalable or sustainable. So, that's the one thing we really try to encourage, our new franchise owners on, is you need to learn it, but your goal shouldn't be to be the best or the only designer on your team. You need to learn it well enough to recruit and train other designers, and then really empower them to go out and handle that aspect of the business, because there's better uses of your time as the franchise owner.
For sure. If you're looking at an executive style business and it involves 2 years of you doing the actual work, newsflash, it is not an executive style business.
Right.
You definitely should be hiring and training folks really as soon as you possibly can. So
yeah, when we sign a new franchise partner, there's usually at least 3 to 4 weeks in between them signing their franchise agreements and coming. We're based in Atlanta, is where our headquarters is. So that's where all of our training takes place. So usually at least 3 to 4 weeks in between signing and training. And from the time agreements are signed, we're coaching new franchise owners and giving them what they need to go out and start recruiting those first designers and installers. And if they're able to get some designers and installers on board with them before coming to Atlanta for training, they can bring them with them and they can go through training together. And that way, when they get back and are ready to open for business, you've got hopefully one installer and at least one designer that you can, start getting up to speed at the same time that you are. Because one thing you don't want to happen is kind of have the mentality, well, I'm going to do it all myself for the first couple of months so I can learn it. And then what'll usually happen is you get busier than you expect to. You kind of get on this hamster wheel where it's hard to get off, because then you're kind of pressing pause on everything that's going on, while you then go try to start finding and training designers and installers. So you're right. It's definitely best to start those efforts pretty much immediately. And the goal should be to have a good team in place as quickly as possible. And, for a business like Shelf Genie, if you're focusing on the right things, that ramp up doesn't look anything like 2 years. We've had franchisees. We've got a guy opened in Cleveland 3 months ago. And I mean, the numbers that he's putting up are just phenomenal for a franchisee that's only a few months in, but he's put together a fantastic team. I think he had 3 designers and 1 or 2 installers with him at training in Atlanta. And then when he finished training, they went back and 3 days later went straight into a 10-day home show in Cleveland. And, because he did the groundwork ahead of time and had a team in place, I mean, they were kind of, it was trial by fire for them, right? They were like straight out of training. They were still pretty green, but he had a team and they were able to capitalize on that. And his ramp up has been incredible because of it.
Well, that's awesome about that Cleveland franchisee. It kind of makes me think about some clients we've worked with in the past that, they are perhaps a little bit undercapitalized, and they come into the business saying, well, I need to make money first. I need to keep my expenses low. I don't have an extra $20,000 or $30,000 to put into operating capital. So I got to do the work. And it kind of leads into my next question of, the capital requirements to get into the business. What does that look like? And, how much of that is the operating capital that's going to give us that mindset or that comfort that allows us to build a team before we even technically make a sale?
Yeah, that's a good question and a very good point. I mean, I think, undercapitalization is something that causes many new businesses to struggle or to fail, franchise or not. So for Shelf Genie, it varies. We're a territory-based model, so we don't have a brick and mortar component to the business. It's set up to be a home-based business model. So, that keeps the initial investment lower than it would in many franchises, because you don't have the whole real estate component and trying to find a physical location and everything that it takes to get that open. We also try to keep the overhead expenses low in general. So, in addition to it being a home-based business, there's no inventory component. I mentioned earlier, everything we build is custom, right? So franchisees place orders from our manufacturing facility on an as-needed basis. When they have a client that's ready to place an order, that's when they order it. Because we're building everything custom for them, most franchisees take a deposit up front from the client before they place the order. It's usually 50%. And then they would typically collect the second half of the payment at the time of installation. So number one, you don't have inventory to invest in. You don't have to have a warehouse to store inventory in, so you don't have the overhead that comes with that. And then just from a cash flow perspective, it leaves the potential for the business to start cash flowing pretty quickly, because not only are you getting that 50% deposit up front, you're getting the final payment as soon as the work's completed. So there's really no accounts receivables that our franchise owners are having to manage. They're not having to wait extended periods of time to collect payment after services have been provided. In fact, our manufacturing plant doesn't invoice franchise owners for the materials in a job until 30 days after it ships. So, 9 times out of 10, that gives the franchisee time to receive the delivery, install it, and they're paid in full before they even have to turn around and pay for the materials. So from a cash flow perspective, that works out nicely too. The other thing I'll point out in relation to overhead is that most of our franchise owners use a 1099 contractor model, where these designers and installers, instead of being, full-time or even part-time employees where they're paid some sort of an hourly wage or a salary, they are commissioned only. And the commission is usually paid out in the form of a percentage of each job that they're involved in. So if a designer sells a job, they'll get a percentage of that as their commission. Installer gets a percentage of that job that they install. And it's up to each owner to set up, how they want to compensate their people. And we do have some franchisees that use more of a traditional W-2 employment model, but the vast majority of our owners use this 1099 approach. And I like it for a couple of reasons. One, it does keep the overhead low. You don't have a fixed payroll. If you're paying out to your team, it's because the revenue's already been generated to support that. I think it also opens the door to recruit better talent for these positions. And I'll quickly explain what I mean by that by giving an example or two. In our franchise business, one of our installers, he's been with us since we opened. He's a career firefighter. So Shelf Genie for him is kind of his side job, if you will. When he's not at the fire station, he's working on Shelf Genie. And he's fantastic. Our clients love him. He does a great job with the work. He's making great money, so he loves it. And this is a guy that I'd hired at a previous company, so I knew him before we started our Shelf Genie franchise. But if I would have gone to him and said, hey, we're starting this business and I think there may be a role for you in it, but it's going to require you leaving your job as a firefighter and committing 40 hours a week to do this for me, no way, it wouldn't have happened. And the same approach can work with designers as well. A lot of our franchise owners have had success recruiting interior designers or professional organizers or Mary Kay reps that are kind of used to that little more flexible work style or work schedule. They're more familiar maybe with the commission only type of pay structure, and they're the type of people that are hungry to go out and kind of hunt down the business, and that translates really well. And if you do it right, you can really build out a team of designers that are able to bring business to the table for you as a franchise owner, instead of you having to try to provide all of the opportunities to them through your marketing and advertising efforts. So, someone that works as an interior designer or even owns their own interior design firm, and they're, contracted to design for Shelf Genie as well, they likely have clients that they're already working with, or a client base they've worked with in the past that would very likely be interested in Shelf Genie and the solutions that we provide as well. So there's definitely some strategy that can go into that. So I realize I've gotten a little far away from the initial question that you asked, but I did want to kind of explain how the overhead is structured, because we don't have a whole lot in terms of fixed overhead. So that plays into, how much working capital you need to really get this up and running, and what the typical investment range looks like for us. So that being said, the investment range depends on the number of territories that someone may want to start with. Because there's so little overhead, all but 3 or 4 of our franchisees are what we would call multi-unit or multi-territory owners, where they own, 2 or more territories. But what you'll see in our FTD in item 7, where we kind of break out the initial investment range, is a range of about $68,000 to just under $104,000. That range is if you were starting with a single territory. So that range includes the franchise fee for one territory, which is $45,000. It also includes any expenses that you would incur to get open for business, and approximately 3 months worth of operating capital for the business. So the biggest thing for us in terms of operating capital is having money on hand to invest in marketing and advertising. We have a minimum of $5,000 per month that each franchisee spends on marketing and advertising in their first year of business. So we, include up to $15,000 of marketing capital to get started, and then we also bake in $5,000 to $15,000 of just extra working capital to have on hand. You may or may not need it, but it's great to have it in case you do. So that's kind of what our typical investment range looks like. Again, a lot of our franchisees do start with multiple territories. If that's the case, you're not looking at doubling or tripling that range that I gave you. It's really just a matter of adding in the franchise fee for the additional territory, which goes from $45,000 down to $36,000 when you're buying additional territories. And then you'd want to have a little extra marketing capital on hand, most likely. But the startup expenses are really the same, whether you're buying one or multiple, and your overhead doesn't really go up when you add territory for all the reasons that we just talked about.
Okay, great. You also don't have to build the manufacturing plant, right? I mean, that's already there also.
Yeah, and that's a big piece that some people overlook. And I can tell you, over the last, because the founders of Shelf Genie started the business back in 2000. They didn't start franchising it until late 2007, but the business itself started way back in 2000. And so it's been a long road to get to where we are now, where we're vertically integrated. We have manufacturing in place. We have all of our suppliers. Our manufacturing facilities actually based right outside of Birmingham, Alabama. So we do manufacture everything here in the U.S. And so, yeah, it's been a long way, to go to get to where we've got, great manufacturing, great processes in place, and we're able to really customize these solutions for our clients. So that's a good point. To try and do this on your own or through a network of third-party manufacturers would be not only difficult, but I can only imagine there'd be a few headaches along the way.
Yeah, very, very much so, and time consuming, and not really building the business, but just putting infrastructure in place.
Yep.
For those of you that are watching that maybe aren't familiar with the difference between a W-2 and a subcontractor, in America, those are different ways that you can choose to employ workforce. Not going to go into those details, but frankly, when a franchisor only allows one way of employing those individuals to help perform the work, it might be a little bit of a yellow flag or a caution, so to speak, because that may show a rather rigid approach to a business. And they may be able to explain that very well, but knowing that you can have direct employees and subcontract employees with Shelf Genie, really, it's just a bonus. It makes your business more so flexible for the time. So
yeah, that's a very good point. And so, like I mentioned, I mean, we have different owners that do it differently, but and so it's always up to them. Not only how are they going to employ, but how much are they going to pay? The commissions that they pay, it's totally up to them. It's all kind of left up to the individual owner. And I did want to clarify something I mentioned. I mentioned the marketing minimum earlier. That's all detailed in our FDD and something that I discuss in detail with candidates. But we do not dictate at all how franchisees spend their marketing dollars. That's always left up to them. Like I mentioned earlier, we have some great marketing support teams in place that can, guide a franchise owner and help them develop that marketing and advertising strategy, but we don't dictate it. So some of our franchise owners come from more of a marketing background, and they like to be a lot more involved with determining what that marketing strategy is going to look like. Whereas, we have some owners that have never done marketing at all, and they just kind of lean on our marketing team to recommend what they think the best strategy would be. The key thing to understand is that once an owner's decided on their marketing and advertising strategy, you have a team behind you to implement and execute. And then it's really just monitoring the results. And we do a very good job of tracking and providing reporting to really show our franchise owners what type of an ROI they're getting on the marketing dollars that they're investing. So I just wanted to clarify that, because sometimes when people hear, a marketing minimum, it may set off some red flags. And, for us, it's nothing more than, we've been franchising this business for 10 plus years, and we know that new franchisees need to be prepared to invest appropriately in marketing and advertising, especially in that first year that they're in business. So, but other than that, totally up to each owner how they go about doing that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. If you are looking at getting into business, especially coming into America from another country, and you don't have a substantial amount of money set aside for marketing for the first year, you're pretty much setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Especially if there's going to be a culture change, maybe a language barrier. If it's a new market, if there's not a lot of brand awareness, all of those kind of things are things that we discuss with our clients at usfranchisevisa.com. And, it's critical. So, what Wes is saying is not just about Shelf Genie. It's really more of a business lesson in general.
Yeah,
there are very few businesses that can ramp and become profitable without a significant marketing budget the first 12 months.
Yep.
So we appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Wes, thank you for being on the call and telling us about the opportunity. If people wanted to learn more about Shelf Genie, what would be the best way to get some general information?
Sure, yeah, you can go to shelfgeniefranchise.com. That's going to have a really good overview of the franchise opportunity. A bunch of kind of frequently asked questions are answered there. You can also go through Thomas, and he can connect you with me. That would be a good way to reach out and get more information as well. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, Wes Barefoot on LinkedIn, and I love to connect with people there. So. But yeah, shelfgeniefranchise.com would be a good starting point, or just reach out to Thomas directly. He knows how to get in touch with me and can put us in contact.
Great, and I've got those links in the description down below, so if you do want to click on those now and get that information, feel free. If you got value out of this video, please like, share, comment, let us know what you might like to know more about, what you like particularly hearing. We're always looking to add value to the community and help people understand the pros and cons of franchising, and that's why we have Mr. Wes Barefoot on the call today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity. This was fun, Thomas.